I call Mr. Finn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to support Mr. Somyurek's motion today. I listened very carefully to Ms Taylor's proposition. I'm not exactly sure where the government's coming from or indeed where it's going on this occasion, but that seems to be the way of the world on this particular issue. Now, I have been watching the IBAC investigation for quite some time, and it has to be said that it seems to me to be somewhat unbalanced. There is an imbalance in the investigation. There are apparently two factions in the ALP. There is the Socialist Left and there is the right. There may be a few others along the way, but they're broadly the same thing. Broadly the same thing. IBAC seems to be investigating one faction for doing what we all know both factions have been doing for years. Mr. Somyurek has told us what the left have been doing for years. They are experts at branch stacking. The Premier stands accused of this very thing. Now, it seems to me that if IBAC is serious, if IBAC is fair dinkum, if IBAC wants to keep its credibility in place, that it will investigate both sides. Who is it getting its directions from? Who is it getting its instructions from? Who? Well, I don't think it's from the DLP, Mr. Lean. I can assure you that. But I think it might be coming from an old mate of yours, a bloke called Daniel Andrews. Or I'm not sure. Am I allowed to use that name? But the premier of this state, who likes to control everything and everyone. And the people of Victoria are asking the question, does the Premier of Victoria control IBAC? Does the Premier of Victoria, or has the Premier of Victoria given IBAC instructions and they are indeed following it? That's the question, the biggest question in this whole thing. Sure, we want to get to the bottom of branch stacking, we want to get to the bottom of a whole range of things that have, we all know have been going on for donkey's years. That'd be great. But the biggest issue in this is the role of the Premier in this IBAC investigation. That's the biggest question. That's the biggest issue. In fact, if we had a body which could investigate IBAC, I would suggest an investigation, because clearly they are going down the same track. They are going down the same track as the Premier in trying to destroy the right wing of the ALP. Now, I warmly welcome any members of the right wing of the ALP to come and join the DLP. They would be very, very welcome. We would get on very well. We would get on famously in many instances. But what we are seeing here in Victoria at the moment worries the hell out of me. I have been in absolute stunned amazement over the last couple of years at the strength, the stranglehold that the Premier has on just about everything, from the police force right through. He is controlling everything. And the question now is the Premier directing IBAC? Now, if that is happening, and it appears that it could be happening, if that is happening, we have got one of the greatest cases of corruption in the history of this nation. If IBAC is taking instructions from a politician, the Premier of this state, well then we have got a major issue. We have got a major issue. And I'd like to know, if they're not taking instructions from the Premier, if they're not, why are they only investigating one faction of the ALP? Why aren't they touching on the Socialist Left, who we know? I mean, I've been out in the western suburbs. I know the ALP. I know the ALP backwards, and I know some of the shysters in the ALP. The Suleimans, I think they're in their own faction, to tell you the truth. If we start talking about the Suleimans, we could be here all day. Let me assure you, and I certainly don't have enough time for that, unfortunately, but maybe another time. We all know that there has been an enormous branch stacking effort going on from the Socialist Left in a war with the right. If there wasn't a war going on, why the right be fighting it? Who would they be fighting? Who would they be fighting? This motion is extremely important. We do not want to go to the election. We do not want this Parliament. We don't want this Parliament to finish its time without all of these questions being examined and answered. And it is so important that we do that, because the dark cloud hanging over this government, hanging over this Parliament right now, is something that does not add to the credibility of our political system. Now, Dr. Barker said, you know, as we stand here, or as I stand here, and as you sit here right now, we have a situation where the vast majority of Victorians, the vast majority of Australians think we're all crooks. They think we're all crooks. And that, to my way of thinking, is a tragedy, because I know we're not all crooks. We're not all crooks. I could name a couple that probably are, but I won't on this occasion. But that's unfortunately the attitude that people have toward us. Does anybody seriously think that allowing this to be just brushed under the carpet by the proroguing of Parliament, does anybody think that's going to help with the public perception of politicians, of our political system? Quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. So it is absolutely vitally important that this matter is properly examined while the Parliament is still in session, and whilst we can get a final report on what has occurred here. You know, as I say, we know roughly what has happened, but we need it confirmed by IBAC. Mr. Somyurek, I've travelled overseas and interstate with Mr. Somyurek on a number of occasions. He must have a hell of a phone bill. That's all I can say, because he has spent, in my experience, a hell of a lot of time on the phone, and I don't think he was ringing his family on every occasion. So we know, and he's quite openly admitted that he has been involved in factional manoeuvrings and in involvement for a very long time. But what we now need to know is what role the Premier has taken in all of this, what role the Socialist Left involved itself. You know, what sort of public money has the Socialist Left used to support its branch stacking efforts and its attempts to, successful, so it would seem, to control the ALP. It's quite extraordinary that in the midst of all this, we have a situation where the Socialist Left have just blown the right out of the water, and nobody's saying anything. No, it's all very hush-hush. You know, and the questions that are being asked around the place are just hanging in the air, and we can't let that happen. We can't let that happen. We need those questions answered, and the referral to the Privileges Committee, I believe, will go some way toward answering those questions. So I support the motion put forward by Mr. Somyurek. I hope that the motion, if passed today, will clear the air of a number of questions, because clearly IBAC is not capable of clearing the air, and the questions, the concerns that Victorians have must have attention turned to them, because it is a matter of grave concern, the utmost concern, that this occurs and is allowed to just pass. It cannot be allowed to happen, and for those reasons, I very strongly support the motion put forward by Mr. Somyurek today.